I'm more upset with Greg Biffle. He's the most unprofessional little scaredy cat I've ever seen in my life. He wouldn't even fight me like a man after. He needs a freaking whooping. I'm going to give it to him.
Good day, race fans, and welcome to the Intentional Wreck Podcast, a podcast made by race fans for race fans, from the casuals to the lifelong gearheads. My name's Jeff, and I'm here with my fellow hosts Corey and Finn, and you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Wreck. You can also find us on Twitter under the handle @intwreckpod. That's @INTWRECKPOD. I'd also like to throw out a big shout out to the 4 Laps Down Facebook community for having us and hosting us. Thank you. We appreciate you, and we hope that we get to interact with you a lot more. My dudes, we're officially rounding turn 1 on this young season. We're far from short on things to talk about. We got a big week this week. We've seen ovals. We've seen road races. We've seen dirt races. The appeals committee is making friends and fans all over the world of NASCAR one ruling at a time. Hard as I tried to finally beat Corey in fantasy this week, he still squeaked his way on top out of all of that. Also, it's officially Power Rankings week, so I'm sure Finn is about to make plenty of friends and fans of his own.
No gray hairs here.
How are y'all feeling as we head into the quarter mark of the season, week 9?
I don't know. I love the Bristol dirt race so much. I had such a great time watching it with you guys this weekend. I think the season is probably unfolding mostly how I would have expected it to unfold. We've seen a lot of speed from the Hendrick guys. We've seen Chris Bell's got his win now. We've seen Kyle Busch get a win. So quarter of the way through the season, yeah, okay. I could see this. I would love to have seen somebody from SHR show a little speed at some point other than my guy Harvick, but alas, not yet.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is probably one of all of our favorites races of the year, and we got more to talk about because it's interesting how the drivers don't necessarily resemble that sentiment. You know, some guys really feel like they just kind of prefer it went away, and there hasn't even been an announcement that it will be back, because every year that they've done Bristol Dirt, that weekend they will announce that they're bringing it back. They did not. So there's plenty to talk about there. But as far as the season goes, I think we've had some really solid improvement. I did get a chance to go back and rewatch the Richmond race, and I'm not surprised that everybody seemed very happy with the passing. Turns 3 and 4 looked really good. I did get to watch Denny drive from 13th to 1st to end that second stage. That was pretty cool to see that it definitely got a little bit more coverage than I thought. So considering that that's the package that we're going to be carrying into Martinsville this year, that's going to be exciting to talk about later. But overall, really happy. Again, I just do think that if it really is going to be a legendary season compared to the others throughout the years, I think we really need to see some of the cars that we're used to seeing riding up front get back to riding up front. We need to see the return of Chase Elliott, which should be coming soon. They say he should be ready for Martinsville, but they're going to hold off at least a week or so. We're probably going to see him back at Talladega coming up shortly, so it won't be much longer. And then again, Josh Berry may very well earned himself a ride in the future with how he's been racing, and that interim crew chief probably has earned himself a job, considering the strategy calls that he's done to get them where they are. The 9 was running up top 5, top 6 on some of those late restarts in Bristol. So I guess
I think we've got some guys as well who we've only got one driver who's won 2 races. Right. So we're what 8 races I think into the year, 9 races into the year now, and
8 races we're going.
8 races. So you've got 7 winners with 16 playoff spots, and we're only a quarter of the way through the season. So obviously some of those guys are going to win more races. That's just kind of what it is. But we're still waiting on a Chastain win. Maybe Harvick gets a win. Maybe Truex gets a win. Keselowski. There's other guys that were, and Chase Elliott, right?
Right. I think everybody's
got hurt.
Yeah.
He's gonna get a win, right? And it could happen at Talladega.
Right.
But
yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't considered that last year was such a crazy season because how many various winners we've had. Yeah. This one seems to be right on pace. Yep. I can't even 100%. Remember back last year the first driver to repeat wins was, I think even later this year, so that's a good one. But to Bristol Dirt, compared to last year, did it feel like there were more viable lines to run? low, medium, high, I really felt like they could run anywhere they wanted to if they really wanted.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I think that was one of the bigger differences now that we've seen guys kind of get used to this track and how to run it. And well, I mean, you look at the way the truck race panned out, like aside from like Logano getting his like large leads, you look at, was it Friesen, who essentially just found that top lane and glued himself to it and flew around numerous times and found ways to catch and pass while he was doing that. And we saw guys do the same thing in the cup cars. We saw, the middle lane, a lot of cases turned into the high lane. And as the tires started to wear down and as things started to go, that was another thing that we saw was like in the attempts to try and drift down ended up bringing you up. So some people started to kind of embrace that. It was very interesting to watch Bell towards the end of that race because we all knew that his tires were on the way to being shot into those last like 10 laps or so, and it was really a question of whether or not he was going to hold it, and he held it well. He did a great job.
Right.
So
that was a clinic from Chris Bell, man. Like,
it was a great drive. He did a great job.
Bumper, his rear right fender was maybe 6, 8, 10 inches off the wall for lap after lap after lap, and I cannot even fathom the amount of skill that it takes to like stay on that line as you have Reddick coming up behind you, who's a dirt track god. You have Briscoe coming up behind you, who's a dirt track god. And all the while, Bell is keeping his line with Swiss knife, like Swiss watch precision. It was intense.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic. And it almost makes me wonder what I was talking about at work today with our old man, Greg Keller. Why is Larson having such a problem being considered the best of all these dirt drivers? And I think he's kind of overthinking it. And I think you guys made a point, like, these guys have learned how to race this track. So instead of trying to race it like a dirt car, they're trying to race it. They're just racing the stock car on this track how they can and how they're supposed to, right? And
Larson came out after the race and said that he thinks it should go away.
Right. I think that the reason why is I think he's trying to race it like a dirt car. And it's not a dirt car. It's a dirt track, but it's not a dirt car. And I just think that maybe Kyle Larson's driving style is so maybe unique and skilled on the dirt and how he drives the dirt cars, but it just does not apply here. So maybe I think he might be overthinking it because obviously he's quick, right? He's quick all throughout the first stage, but once he got back there, you see him spinning out. You see him kind of like struggling and bumping and banging. It's just one of those things I'm very curious. Whereas guys like Bell and Briscoe, who even though they do have dirt backgrounds, I feel like they're doing a lot better job of racing the stock car. And it was really cool to see Briscoe back up front, having that pace. I mean, he was running down the 25 or the 20, and I do think Chase Briscoe wins that race if Tyler Reddick doesn't get even. And you said it.
If Reddick wasn't there, Briscoe wins the race.
Yeah, you said.
Or we have a repeat of 2022 Bristol Dirt
where he sends
Chase sends it in the last lap and doesn't stick.
Right.
To your Kyle Larson point, he got absolutely shown up by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece, you're my hero. Good job, buddy.
So you mentioned that why he doesn't want it back, and it's fun. They say it's a gimmick, and I get it. In this winter, I would say what I want to see, and my question to you guys is: do you feel like dirt racing is a gimmick? It's obviously at least two of our favorite races, right? Like two of us, it's our favorite race of the year. For me, it's second. It's only behind the Coke 600 for me. I love Bristol Dirt, but I get it, and the reason why is for me. When I think of the schedule and what I want to see, when I look at the championship series, the 10 races that we've had for the chase or whatever, I want to see all the different tracks that we run there. Okay. We run, you run short tracks, you got to be good at short tracks. So I want to see you have dirt, short track speed and have to be good at short tracks in the chase and plate races and road courses. And we have those, but we don't have dirt track representation in the final in the race, so there's nothing to gain from being good at dirt outside of just the win. Does that make sense? Like you go into Phoenix every week and it's like, cool, we're trying to get good at Phoenix because we're going to have to be there later, or we have to get good at this package of car because this is the one that's going to be the championship race. Or hey, there's 3 to 4 intermediate tracks in the chase, so every race, Charlotte, Texas, all of these intermediate track, Kansas, Michigan, all that speed matters now in the cup. Whereas in dirt, it's just like, all right, hey, the one guy that wins this dirt race gets a playoff bid, and then it never matters anymore. That's where I feel like it could be gimmicky. And I don't know if I want 2 dirt races in the season. And that's where I would find myself voting like, hey, maybe we don't need a dirt track there. But I will say this, make the All-Star race a dirt track.
So this is the thing. Like, my first reaction to the first part of what you were saying is, I don't really think there's anything wrong with a gimmick necessarily. I don't think there's anything wrong with. I don't really see the point in trying to like stigmatize a gimmick. If it's an event, if it's a gimmick, if it works, then awesome. I think that you kind of go about this one of a couple ways. The idea of the All-Star race, that's definitely something to consider. I'd love to see them do that. Sorry, I'd love to see them do that at some point. That would be cool. You know, considering the way the All-Star race has gone, you know, the last couple years, that's definitely something to think about. But what I would think is that either you keep it this way, you do the one, you do it early in the season, you kind of get it out of the way and let the more serious points races happen towards the tail end so that people aren't kind of going, well, what are we doing with this dirt race, you know, 2 weeks before the playoffs when people need to pull points, and what does that do for this guy or that guy?
Right.
Now, so what I'm thinking about instead is like, what would be the potential of doing 2 dirt tracks? Not necessarily like if you're gonna get serious and make it a thing. If you did, what's the one they run the trucks at? Eldora. It's it's an idea. If you were, because what I think you do is you do a real standard known dirt track if you're gonna do it, instead of trying to do, you know, like convert another track. Bristol just made sense for them to try and do it. But even then, there was a lot of challenges to try and make Bristol a dirt track. So I think my view on it is I got no problem with it. And I think it's fine early in the season. It's cool. If we're going to do it this way, that's fine. I think the idea of just, throw it out, get rid of it. Like, if it's not something that is so like incredibly taxing on like, you know, all the people that make it happen, then, you know, do your thing.
I just think that sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Corey. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna add to that. Like, what is it harming? It's one race. We got plate races. We got short tracks. We got, you know, 8 or 10 road courses now. You got one dirt race. No one wants them to do it twice. If anyone is saying they should go back there and run Bristol dirt in the playoffs, I completely disagree. And I love this.
Absolutely not.
But this is it, and we talked about it last week, right? There's nowhere else they could do this. They can only do it at Bristol, and I think it gives it a certain quality that it's on Easter. Everybody's families are together. It's something a little different. You don't usually see it on TV, and I mean, why not? I don't think they should run it Eldora. If you wanna turn the Bristol spring race back into a concrete race, okay, let's do that. And then every single year, let's just have some fun and have the All-Star race be Bristol dirt and just wrap it up that way, right? Because I want to see the race. I don't care if it's for points. I don't care if it's for the playoffs. I just want to see that race, right? So I think it's hugely enjoyable. I think and also I have the luxury of not being a purist, right? Like I don't have the NASCAR background. All I care about is the content that I'm watching during this race enjoyable to me. I don't really give a shit what Kyle Larson likes. I don't care. Right? I just want to see the cool Bristol dirt race. Right. So
I got a buddy who's a diehard F1 fan. I got him to watch Coda. He thought it was cool, but he didn't really care about oval racing at all. He texted me out of the blue. I didn't even tell him about the race. He texted me out of the blue and he goes, "They just put dirt all over Bristol?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "I'm going to watch this for a bit. These cars are extra loose." Like
it's the most quintessentially American thing.
Right. It's super sick. But I will say this, from sympathizing with the drivers and the owners of guys that are not dirt car drivers, right? Because at the end of the day, it is a free play, essentially, right? This is a free playoff win for a small subset of drivers. Because while it is dirt racing and a lot of guys come from dirt racing, that's not the advantage. Like, that's not NASCAR's per se. Yes, it's history, and all I'm doing is kind of giving a devil's advocate to it. I
and I
want to keep
understand,
it sane,
but that's a
the
direct
Joey
contradiction
Logano
of,
is
that's true.
the rebuttal to that. But
Logano's
yeah.
won it, and that's the exact opposite of what Kyle Larson's complaint was. Kyle Larson's complaint was they're beating, or your sort of representation of it before, where you said guys aren't driving it like a dirt track, right? So if that is the case, and guys aren't driving it like a dirt track, and it's its own thing, then how much does that dirt background really matter? Both of those things can't really be true. It matters.
So another thing to keep in mind is the first time they ran it was on the dog shit package that we've had for years. They had to go single file because the guys couldn't even see. There's so many issues. So while Logano won, keep in mind Logano won because Bell and Larson wrecked each other that race, and they were both out after that. So it wasn't exactly, you know what I'm saying? I get it, Logano won, but since it's been improved upon, since they've raced prepped the track better, and since we've been on the next gen, last year was Reddick and Briscoe running each other down. This year was three dirt drivers. In fact, the only, I would say, impressive driver this weekend without a dirt background is Kyle Busch. He's the only one who even looked remotely quick. Austin Dillon,
what about
dirt guy.
did Truex run dirt?
I don't think Truex is a dirt guy.
He was top.
He ran all right.
He was okay, but for all intents, the guys that I saw running around were guys like Todd Gilliland, who looked fantastic, and he's been great, and he tends to finish top 10 in these road courses. So, either way, I think it's worth discussing. I don't think they're going back to Bristol dirt next year, but the spring race at Bristol is always a problem because it rains so much in Bristol, Tennessee during that time of year. That race is almost always delayed. I appreciate us doing something. I'm down for dirt in the future, even if it's not Bristol dirt. It was super fun. But
if they take anything away from this race, keep the drone. The drone is awesome.
The drone is definitely cool.
The drone is so cool.
Here's a proposition. Like, here's something that I'm thinking about. Like, that to me, if you're gonna like appease all the sides here, just something to throw out, because NASCAR has done similar things in the past, is that what if, you did some sort of like it's similar to like what they did with the Outlaws back in the day or something like that, is what if you did like an invitational series that you ran 3, 4, 5 races, something like that, invitational to all of, NASCAR's roster, all the way down from Cup through, all the way to ARCA, wherever you want to do, and try and pull a roster of 20, 25 drivers to run a short series of an invitational, and that way you kind of get to see your favorites and go and run something like that. Run it through the TV package, and find the time to do it. To me, that's your best of both worlds scenario. And you hit some of the more notorious, and you can do it in more traditional dirt cars, or something modified that would run similar to that.
Right, and I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, there's big talks about like NASCAR ownership not agreeing with NASCAR on the future deals and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if there tends to be some drivers reaching out. Kyle Larson announced he's got a full-time dirt series that he's going to be like, I guess he's like the owner of it or whatever the case that he runs, and Bowman runs full-time in that.
Tony Stewart owns Eldora.
He has SRX. I don't know if that's coming back, but I got to watch Haley Deegan run down Tony Stewart in a dirt race. That was super sick. Things like that. So there's that racing out there. But the downside is we've got not one but 2 injuries now directly related to NASCAR drivers doing non-NASCAR related things, right? Chase Elliott and Chase Briscoe with the broken finger this weekend. He was able to race, and first of all, insanely impressive that he is drifting in dirt, downshifting in dirt with a broken finger, still managed to finish 5th and look probably the most impressive car out there. So Bristol, like Bristol Dirt, lock that into the fantasy teams.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't completely biased. It's the funnest race because Briscoe's actually
just flying.
I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm biased, but I don't know. It would make me really sad, and I think you're right. I don't think they're going to be back at Bristol Dirt next year, but I hope it doesn't go away forever and entirely.
I feel that.
Yeah. So what if the next thing that I want to go over, because we can make a reference to also what we did last something that we went over last week. So the appeals committee, we've got our rulings. for Hendrick, and more significantly, we got our rulings for Colleague Racing. And then on top of that, right afterwards, NASCAR came after Hendrick again.
Gotta be kidding.
Which I'm sure we'll see the appeals committee insert themselves.
They said they are not. They said they are not going to
Really?
be appealing in the interest of just focusing on going forward. They said that the violations had nothing to do with their performance.
Have the penalties been announced yet?
No, they've already they already took like 60 points from the Hendrick
Yeah, they
guys,
took
from
points
Bowman and
off, yeah.
Byron. And they're not going to appeal that. So that sounds
Did
like
they admit they cheated again?
that sounds like we got. It says greenhouse, which is just what's inside the car. I don't know. This is what I do wish. I wish that NASCAR was way more open with what these things are. Way more open to the appeals process. I said in the podcast last week that I'm going to hold fast on the Hendrick thought process that if Colleague goes and appeals for the same thing and doesn't get equal treatment, I'm not going to enjoy that. And that's very much what happened. But because there's two things to keep in mind, that the appeals are two different boards. It's not the same board that heard Hendrick's story, which I think is odd. I feel like if you're going to have an appeals court, why not be the same people? Especially if we're talking about the same exact louvers. Obviously, what could theoretically save one team for the other is that self-reporting. But again, we don't get to know that information. I know Hendrick claimed that they said things about it and said, hey, this is what we got or whatever, okay, fine, we'll make it fit, and then I don't know, haven't looked enough into it, but I don't think, this is a small team. We've only got two guys. The likelihood of them recovering from a major points drop is very small. I think it's really weird. Weird thing to do. So not the
Something
biggest fan
doesn't smell right.
Yeah, and then they do a makeup call by grabbing Byron and Bowman next,
Right.
on the Richmond date. So
It absolutely does feel like a makeup call. I have a proposition for you guys regarding this. Let me just put this out there real quick.
Okay.
How about same manufacturer, same race, same violation? That was what happened, right? It was the same. They're all
Right.
Chevys. It happened at the same race. They did the same thing, right?
right.
Why two separate appeals? That doesn't make any sense.
I think it's just
Right?
because of the
So
team. Yeah.
why not just have them stand together as two separate teams, but they did exactly the same
Right,
thing.
but if they go to say they go to
the
the appeals, right, and then
Yeah.
like in that appeals, Chad Knaus and them go, hey, this is what we did, and then Colleague goes, yeah, we didn't do that. We just did what Hendrick did, and we didn't speak up on it at all or whatever.
I'm not necessarily
Right.
saying that. I guess what I mean to say is the appeals should happen simultaneously in front of the same board.
Yeah.
Instead of Hendrick has this one board for this week, and then next week Colleague is going to go to this other board. It's basically impossible to not look at this scenario and view it as anything other than favoritism. Like, I don't think I'm being rash. We all kind of thought this was coming, and there's a reason why those kind of things feel like they're coming. Is because there's a reputation there, right? So I think what we need to do is, when it comes to stuff like this, just level the playing field and just have them both appeal to the same board at the same time. Done.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, my view on it is that, like, anybody who feels like this situation that, something doesn't really seem right, or that, has skepticism about, what's going on here, I think you're without disclosure, there's no, everybody's entitled to that. I mean,
Right.
Within reason, there's plenty of people that let emotions get in the way with the way they might express feelings about it. But at the same time, like, I think the most significant and, the part that everybody had agreed on, regardless of where you stood on this issue, was that there should have been more disclosure. I mean, this was, if you were to ask anybody and poll just about anybody that had any kind of significant feelings about this issue at all and ask them what might make this better, I think the resounding response is going to be that there should be some, more disclosure to the appeals process so that people can understand how you got from one ruling to another.
Right.
Perfectly fair.
And and then you look at a situation like last year when Brad Keselowski got absolutely slapped with a penalty and there was like nothing in the appeals. Now, granted, I get that it needs to be stronger. I think one of the big things that I've always wanted to see, and actually they're bringing it back, is that openness. So they had Bob Pockers tweeted, they said they have a table, they used to do this back in the old day, where any confiscated parts are presented. to the field, to at the racetrack, to all the other teams, and that's something that I want to see. Yeah, that way, that more information gets out, more openness on what these things done. Right? We find out an NFL player popped hot. We know what it is. They come out and they say, 6 weeks for the PED thing, and they get a chance to do their, I had a tainted substance, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're getting suspended for. That's what you got suspended for, and then it's on you, save face. So, I definitely, I mean. I don't have any way to feel about Hendrick favoritism. It's not like NASCAR does these appeals. This is independent of NASCAR. But it's just weird that they saw two different boards and got two different results. I can't imagine
NASCAR tried to throw the book. NASCAR went by the book to the letter of what they were trying to rule on that.
Right. So, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's done now, and I hope that they bring some more transparency in the future. That's all.
Yeah. So after that, let's go to what's basically becoming Corey's segment of the show and move our way towards victory lane. So with that, Corey's going to, get his little bit to speak his piece once again. I tried, y'all. I fucking tried.
I was completely busy. I straight up did not even open up the fantasy app. That's on
Corey
me.
even spaced. I was like, let me get to in here and pick my guys and get here and try and snag a person or two that may try and squeak in that's going to gain a few extra points. I put some extra time into try and pick who I thought was going to do this. And at most points during this race, I kid y'all not, I was up 90 points up until about the third stage. And then as things started to wind down and got towards the end, folks started to kind of drift back. The order started to change a little bit. Things started to get a little dicey. And sure enough, Corey found a way that number just started shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until we got to the end. And I think it was about an 8-point margin there at the end. So go ahead, Corey, speak your piece.
Well, that was Jeff Page Sad Story Hour. So let's have victory lane now. So I too did not do a lineup. I left in the same lineup as Richmond because I forgot because it was Easter. Didn't do it. Still won. So here we are. I'm going to propose an idea to you guys today. And it's a quick one. I'm going to put you both on the spot. I'm going to start a little mini series within my victory lanes. And we're going to call it Victory Lane Takes One to Know One. All right. What I want is for you two guys to pick a driver who has underperformed this year, just like both of you have at Fantasy Live. And me, the guy who keeps winning constantly, I'm going to pick a driver who's overperforming this year. So I'm going to start out with my overperforming driver, number 47, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I don't know where this guy came from. I don't really know anything about him. His car looks really cool. He looked like dog shit last year. And yet somehow right now, I believe I was looking at the points earlier and he's 13th or something. So he's sitting right there in playoff contention in some inexplicable way.
Well, he's got to win. He's got to dub.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes. He's in the playoffs because he won Daytona, which is hilarious in its own way. I know it's a toss up, but he continues to just kind of be around, and I don't really understand how he's doing it. I don't think it's going to last. And my pick is Ricky Stenhouse, completely overperforming my expectations this year. Would you two losers like to point out a couple of other losers who maybe?
You go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to understand the criteria. You just want me to pick a guy.
No, just your opinion. Somebody who's underperforming, just how you are in Fantasy Life.
Okay, so
somebody who you expect to get some wins, and So, I mean, hey, okay. If we don't want to do this, that's totally cool.
Oh, the answer to me, to me at this point, the answer is Brad Keselowski.
Okay,
where the hell are you, bro? What are you doing? I understand the road race. I get it. I understand the road race. You're not good at that. That's fine. You get the pass on that. But it feels like almost every week at this point, we're seeing Keselowski, he'll start a race and then sometime they're right near about the middle or so, we just see the 6 car just spun out somewhere on the grass, flamed out for the rest of the day, or just running towards the back of the pack,
He
25
was
plus.
he was pretty good super early in the season, and then the last like 3 or 4 weeks, he's been real bad.
Yeah.
You're definitely right about that.
Yeah.
Who you got, Finn?
Well,
Who's
you
been
thought
as big of a loser as you at Fantasy Live?
you thought this was going to go your way.
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
Out of the last 3 races, he's managed a whopping 1 finish in the top 20. He's on a 44 race, probably more, but at least 44 race losing streak. Cannot seem to buy a win despite being A-tier equipment. He looked like shit on the road course. He looked like shit spinning out on Chase Briscoe's front bumper in the dirt race. I would say this underperformer's name is Ryan Blaney, and we should be considering maybe somebody else for the 12 car, because just like I'm not showing up with the live Fantasy Live lineup, he's not showing up to the track with a competitive setup. So that is my underperformer, is the 12 car of Ryan Blaney. Average finish of 15th, by the way. Average of finish of 15th.
But Finn, if you personally never expected him to do very well,
He's
is
somehow-
he underperforming by
He
your
somehow
standards?
still has not met expectations. All right. Some would say
He's meeting
some would
Finn's
say
expectations.
some would say Kyle Larson has been killing it. Some say William Byron has been killing it. The only thing Ryan Blaney's killing is cats. So
Well, there you go. And that is how
Dang.
we're gonna play Corey's Takes One to Know One on Victory Lane, because I need something that I can just keep doing over and over again, because I keep winning over and over again. So
Cool. Well, that's
There you-
it.
there-
Over. Now
there you
it's
have it.
time that we go on our way to the power rankings, which I know is something that's brought some contention among some of our listeners as whether they've agreed or they disagreed. So we're definitely bringing this one back,
what?
whether you like it or not. This one's definitely happening. So Finn, take it away. What do you got for us this month? 'Cause I
So-
think, is it fair to say this should be about a monthly thing? at some point
I'm
every
doing
few
it
weeks
roughly
we run
every
power?
4 races, four and a
Yeah.
half races. Trying to put it in like Martinsville has 2 races. That's why we're not going to be doing History Lane for Martinsville. This time we're going to do it in playoffs. But yeah, definitely not trying to do this every week, though I do update them every week. And if this does gain traction, then it'll be something that maybe I'll post out every single week. But to talk about it on the pod, I like kind of giving it time to flesh out, trying to over and react to every single races. It's not exactly the right
all
thing to do.
5 of you, please let us know. Is this
So-
gaining traction?
We're getting there. Hey, man, every week is growth.
We'll be
and
double
we're,
digits one day.
we're appreciative of everybody. But
Absolutely.
I think I will say this. After I did my rankings, I went and Googled the current, somebody doing racing. And surprisingly, my front 5 matched up with theirs. So line by line, my top 5 matched with theirs. So I was very interested to see that there's that. But we got some shockers. But first, our honorable mentions. Coming in at 15 is Denny Hamlin. Brother, I don't know if literally, Richmond is the only race this year that he looked like Denny Hamlin, and somehow he's speeding penalty his way out of contention of that race. We know what Denny Hamlin can be, but good Lord. I mean, I've got Todd Gilliland above him on this list, outperforming him on dirt, outperforming him at COTA. Todd Gilliland, who lost his full-time ride. He had a full-time ride this year in the 38, if I'm not mistaken. And right before the season started, they announced that they would actually be splitting the schedule. So Todd Gilliland is actually going to be racing with some other teams throughout the, I think, Call League. And we're not going to get into what happened with Cody Ware in the 51. But he is not going to be racing for NASCAR anytime soon in the 51. I wouldn't be surprised if Todd ended up filling in for that ride here and there. But Todd looks great. He's going to take the 14th spot. In 13th is Chase Briscoe. Not just the top 5, obviously at Bristol Dirt, but he has shown a little bit of speed with a couple top 15s and close to top 10s starting as far back as Phoenix. So I'd say we're seeing steady improvement from Chase. Hopefully the broken finger doesn't hold him back too much, but as Stuart Haas is finally getting into the season, it looks like the 14 is picking up
Yeah.
speed.
they put a motor in the car the last couple weeks. was impressive.
Yeah, they showed up.
It's got an actual motor in it now.
Then I got my Penske boys, Ryan Blaney and Logano. Really, Ryan Blaney is here because I couldn't put Michael McDowell here because I didn't know what was going on. But like seriously, Blaney and Logano have been abysmal. Logano did have a pretty solid finish at Richmond. He snuck in a top 10. I think he finished 7th, but he was the first car out at the dirt race, despite winning the truck race, and he didn't look. He looked out of pocket at Coda as well. Logano definitely struggling. One of those guys is that obviously we're expecting to see him at the end of the year, but has a playoff win, so there's that going for him. But the Penske guys have not looked particularly good at all. In fact, I would argue that Austin Cindric has been the best looking Penske car on a consistent basis. So
completely agree with that about
Well,
Cindric for sure.
I mean, Logano with Atlanta, but other
Right.
than that, I mean, taking the pole and getting the win, I mean, the guy was,
Right.
he did his thing. But other than that, yeah, I agree.
right, and if we're gonna give Ricky Stenhouse, shit points for just winning a super speedway race, whatever, like, all right, cool. Logano almost won that race, the Daytona 500, and he won the other super speedway race, cool. But like being fast at super speedways isn't going to win you a championship this year. So,
True.
any issues with 11 through 15? Any gripes? I feel like we're
No, I don't have any issues with that. I mean,
I want to be mad about 15, but I'm not. It's just it hasn't been good. And the one time that you were supposed to do what you were supposed to do, you were supposed to get your win. You couldn't find a way to not speed through pit road or find ways for your team to screw up as far as tire changing. And that's a problem. And that kind of stuff really needs to get ironed out. And that race was that was supposed to be important. That was your 800th total NASCAR race. That was supposed to be a crowning achievement race. You found a way to pull your way up to the front, and you could have done so again if really needed. If you really needed to, if it wasn't for stupid penalties. Sorry, I don't need to go on that rant. I'm a little frustrated with my guy here, but
no, I think I feel you on that, Jeff. I think I don't have any issue with your 15 to 11. I would just say, with the caveat that 13, 14, and 15 is totally interchangeable with those three guys. Like, they could have come up in any order within those three, and I've been like, okay.
Cindric,
Logano
guys like
being
Cindric and
slightly over
McDowell
Blaney.
are also in this realm.
For sure.
I'll tell you who's not in this at all. Daniel Suarez does not have a finish in the last 4 races inside the top 20, I believe. I don't know if it updated his Bristol one when I looked at it, but 4 straight races outside of the top 20 in that equipment, unacceptable. So Daniel Suarez dropped completely out of the power rankings this week, out of the top 15. So, because there's a lot of guys that shot up the list. So, first though is going to be Brad Keselowski. He moved up 4 spots from last time to the 10th spot. I think that obviously, and we know this about Brad, right? We knew that he's not a road course racer, and we know that he is not a dirt track guy. We know this. This is nothing new. So seeing the 6 Hawaiian-bred cars spinning around really wasn't anything. And that's when we talk about gimmicks, right? Like, I'm not trying to grade anybody too hard on how well they did or didn't do at Bristol Dirt, because, it's just a one-off situation. At the majority of the tracks that we've seen, RFK has found speed. I have no doubt in my mind they're going to find a way to win one of these Dega, Daytona, or the next Atlanta race. They've been solid at the short tracks and is solid at the intermediates. So in the 3 kind of main 3 main things that we run, Keselowski's looked impressive. He moves up into the 10, and again he moves up a lot because of the guys that we were just watching are all sucking like crazy. Yeah. So just like being like remotely consistent will get you into the top 10 at this rate. So
I think we're a little bit skewing Keselowski for his performance early in the season, because like I said a few minutes ago, he hasn't really looked that good recently.
Right.
But that would be recency effect. I think you have him probably in the right place here.
Right.
I could see him effectively interchangeable with that Penske group 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. I could see you swapping him and Logano if you wanted to really pick nits. Okay. This is correct, I think.
Right.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I think he could have gone into the other list that you had there. I think maybe top 15, but the guy's got 2 top 10s all year.
Yeah, I just I feel like I'm taking him over. Again, the reason is since these 4 races, I'm taking the fact that those are tracks not built for Brad Keselowski. That's just not the kind of guy. He hasn't been a road course guy since like way back when he was driving the 2 at Watkins Glen. And it doesn't seem like, that's his style. So I'm not really like too lost on that. I feel like he was strong enough on the front half and then consistent enough in these last little bits with speed to where I can be happy. Keep in mind, wasn't he wrecked out of Daytona? So like we say only 2 top 10s, but he was wrecked out of that race if I'm not mistaken. So it was
he finished 22.
Right. So he was strong in that race despite the finish. So trying to consider all those things, but really nobody from about here. This one's going to shock the shit out of you guys. This next one's going to get you, all right? This driver's ripped off 4 straight top 10 finishes. He has not shown race-winning speed. I don't even know if he's led a lap in this race. But a driver, remember, to get up in this rank right now, it just takes being consistent. And right now, it's Ty Gibbs. Oh,
it wasn't who I thought. That's cool.
Ty Gibbs has ripped off 4 straight top 10 finishes. He's running away with the Rookie of the Year by a mile because Noah Gragson and Legacy Motor Club just simply is not doing anything remotely solid. I'm not surprised. Ty Gibbs is really solid at road course racing. He's kept it clean, and that's all he's really had to do to be one of the better performing Toyotas. Being consistent, learning the tracks, getting that experience on his belt. And another thing to consider as we get further and further away from the tragic accident where he lost his father, as they heal and their focus can return back to racing, it's no surprise to see Ty Gibbs improving. So I think he deserves a spot simply because everybody that we just listed, 10 to 15, they are all struggling to just be consistent. Be consistent. Some of those guys have race-winning speed. Chase Briscoe had dirt-winning speed. Denny Hamlin had Richmond-winning speed. Logano's had race-winning speed, has won a race. But none of those guys can just seem to finish in the top 10 right now at a consistent basis. So any shocks? This was my big shocker of the power rankings. I don't think anybody's paid attention to Ty Gibbs except for Bobby Dukes.
Well, that's right. And I would say, yeah, I didn't see this coming, but that I think is more a function of my lack of ability to see the big picture, less so than Ty Gibbs being fast. Right. We knew when he came in, he was going to be in top shit equipment. Like, obviously his last name is Gibbs and he races on a team called Gibbs, right? He's going to get the best stuff. So yeah, cool. It's cool with me. I will tell you this, after seeing him in your top 10, I will be paying a lot closer attention to where he's finishing.
Right.
For sure.
Right. I think that I don't think he's quite there in terms of being able to compete up there to win. Obviously, none of the Joe Gibbs guys that are not named Christopher Bell are finding ways to win. But I do think he's got a lot of talent, and he's definitely going to have the fastest race car that they can give him every week. Right? We're not looking at an R&D car. We're looking at a car that Joe is trying to give speed every single week. So there's that. Coming at the 8-hole, actually going to be a driver that's dropped 4 spots. This is going to be Ross Chastain, similar to his teammate Daniel Suarez, just kind of struggling the last couple of races. He did his best finish, I believe, came at the Dakota race, where I think he kind of dogged the system when he got turned. He didn't fire it back up, and that brought out the caution, and then that allowed him to kind of get a spot back into the field, and then dive bomb 12 cars. So, but outside of that, at Dakota, he looked largely impressive at the dirt race. He's fine. It's Ross. He looked solid in the first half of Richmond while we were there, right? He had a lot of speed, but then he was never really able to improve upon it. I feel like 8's a good spot for him right now. But I think once they find race-winning speed and get one in for Ross, I can easily see him jumping up. But right now, there's just a couple of guys that are just a little bit more consistent, or at least coming in and winning races. So Ross Chastain to the 8th spot. Any gripes there?
You take that one, Jeff.
No, I
know that's your buddy.
That. Oh yeah, best pal, BFFs.
Right, -4 is also how many friends he's made since the last race.
That's about fair.
the memes going around about everything being Ross Chastain's fault is funny. I mean, they are funny.
Coming in the 7th spot is staying right at the 7th spot is my man Alex Bowman. Despite the penalties, he still finds himself pretty high up in the points. He was on his way to a top 10 finish, but on the last lap at Bristol caught a flat tire, so he had to hobble that one around the 20th something, but that was his worst race of the year. For all intents and purposes, Alex has done exactly what it was asked of him on previous years, is to be a little bit more consistent, especially through the summer. Obviously, we're not quite there yet. The one thing they don't have that they've locked up twice early, like for example, last season they won the race at Vegas. That was an early win for that team to kind of get the stress off of their backs, right? And then the year before their first win, I can't remember if he won before that, but he did win the Richmond race. And then I think he didn't run around and run Dover. So the thing with Alex Bowman that I'm concerned about is with not having this win halfway through the season, going into the months and the tracks where this team has notoriously struggled. Now we're going to find, can the 48 compete when we're in ride or die mode? Because, Corey, you already touched on it. A lot of winners so far this season. Don't plan to get in on points. You need to go lock yourself up a win. So, but Bowman has been probably the most consistent driver across the series. He is a top 5 to top 10 merchant. On his best day, he's riding up in 3rd and 4th. But on his worst day, he's running 8th and 9th, and I think that's good for me as a Bowman fan. So,
thoughts on Bowman? If they're asking him to be more consistent, I mean, this is not me taking shots, but like he is the most okayest driver in the Hendrick stable that I feel. I mean, honestly, like Josh Berry's been more impressive than Alex Bowman. Just eye test for me. Like Barry's kind of snuck in and he's finagled his way to the 2nd place finish and he's looked good.
Right. Now those are strategy calls.
I don't have specifically speaking though, I don't have a problem with his placement, right? But I think maybe based on the team that he's on, he should be expected to be a little bit higher. That's
no doubt in my mind. The expectation, and my buddies will tell you that Bowman, they think Bowman was on the hot seat, before they signed Noah Gragson to a 3-year deal at Legacy Motor Club, and then they ended up extending Bowman. I thought going into the season that, it needed to be playoffs or maybe consider losing your seat. He is, I believe, the oldest of the Hendrick drivers, so it's not like we're waiting for the Alex Bowman breakout. This is the Alex Bowman that you're expecting to get. I would love to see him. I mean, y'all remember me screaming in Atlanta just to be a little bit more aggressive on restarts because I'm just so used to seeing a 48 car that if that car was even remotely in the top 5 or first 3 rows coming into a restart, you were going to see that thing in the front. Now it just seems like he's the king of losing 3 positions on restart and then gaining 4 positions throughout the long run. So for a net total of 1 position gained across 80 laps, it's not enough in a Hendrick car, like.
No, I think that's. I think that's a pretty salient point because he's looked good, but not like wow.
Now
Alex
Barry
Bowman,
has impressed. I want to compare Barry not to Bowman, but to like Gibbs last year when he stepped in, or Noah when he stepped in for Bowman. It looks like Barry's done a pretty solid job at getting used to sequential shifting, 5 gears, the way this car drives. Because Barry is lighting up Xfinity. He's a short track like demon. He's a short track god. He's like Dale Jr.'s best friend. Like he is absolutely impressing. I would say that he's not exactly qualifying or running better than the 48 at Coda or Richmond. He just had a strategy call that put himself up front in the right time. I will say he did a very good job on those fresh tires holding 2nd place at Richmond, but I'm not ready to say that he's looked any more impressive. The 9 largely is at the back of the pack throughout the races that Barry's raced for them, but we're not expecting Josh Berry to do anything in a Cup car until next year.
He's not a series vet.
Right.
Like, Bowman's a vet at this point.
But Bowman is running quicker laps. Bowman is qualifying better than Barry and that's by 10-ish positions. So, but Barry definitely has flashed some fun. Anything for Bowman, Jeff, or are you ready to move off of this hack?
No, I think that's fine. I mean, that absolutely makes sense. I kind of agree with Corey. It's been one of those. See, consistency. That's something he has done well. He has very much consistently run pretty good.
Pretty good.
He's Ryan Blaney. He's Ryan Blaney from last year with no lead laps, and that is a frustrating thing. It's not. That's not praise. It's Ryan Blaney from last year, except not leading anything.
That is a major shot coming out of your mouth.
So, listen, I love the guy, but I love the guy because he's in the 48 and he's a really good human, and it's okay. Like I'm okay with not cheering and for the Patriots anymore. Like it's cool, right? But I'm gonna be real about it. But I think he's got potential. He just need to dial in the setup. At the 6 is a guy that's dropping. He was 3rd last week, or last time we did this. Now he's 6th. Kyle Busch, he did look good in the dirt race, kind of clueless at the road course, and snuck. We were talking about strategy call that snuck a second place, and that's just veteran craftsmanship, turning a 28th place race car into a second place race car, and finding a way to hold off Bowman and the rest of them from stealing second from him. But why is he dropping? Well, he's dropping because some of the other cars that were behind him are just driving more impressive. And then second, I just think that he's not competing to the Kyle Busch standard. I think it's hard not knowing the names that are after this on the list to say that. It's definitely one of the bigger drops. But I would say right now the 5 cars ahead of him either are quicker every race or are more consistent every race in my mind.
Yeah, I remember saying something to the effect of Kyle Busch is going to be a problem this year after Auto Club, and where he was just completely dominant. And then you kind of he's definitely fallen off. I see him falling 3 spots. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that. But yeah, he's just got savvy that none of the other guys can. Right. He's just a savvy vet.
And keep in mind, that is B tier equipment. He is in B tier equipment right now. So the fact that he's rolling around 6th in B tier car, that's fine for me. Like that's praise for Kyle Busch.
Yeah, I mean that's all fair. What is he at? 3 top 10s and a win at this point through this juncture of the season, but there's been multiple times that you kind of you were expecting him to get wins just on driver prowess, and his ability. So that's where the tough part of this decision comes in. It's really like trying to temper expectations given the car that he's driving, but also like not discounting his abilities as a driver at the same time. So I think that's fair. I mean, he's definitely deserving to be, in the top 10 and arguably in that far end of the top 5, or, I would have been fine with him anywhere in that 5 to 7 slot. So the 6 makes perfect sense for that.
Agree.
Right. The next driver here at 5, he is by far the best Ford in the field. He's the only Ford I see even remotely having a chance at the championship this year. It has to be Kevin Harvick. Had a hard time moving him down below Kyle Busch. Again, 2 tracks that are not really Kevin Harvick's style, right? Kevin Harvick's an old school guy. Road courses, the way we were talking about Bristol Dirt is the same way Kevin Harvick's generation talked about road courses. They're gimmicks. There's 2 a year. Who gives a shit? Now there's 20 of them. But Kevin is he's the fastest Ford. He looks solid at the tracks that I think matter across the series, especially Phoenix, which again is the most important track on the circuit and the most important package on the circuit. He looks solid at Richmond. I felt like he was riding around in the top 10 all day long. They seem to have got this package that we're using for Martinsville this week down. So I'm liking Kevin Harvick holding down the 5 spot, the only Ford, or the last Ford of them all so far. Any gripes there? I think Kyle Busch might have been. This was a tough one between him and Busch. I'm just going to go with Harvick because I just feel like that's been just because it's the top Ford.
If he wins, he gains big spots. Like as far as I'm concerned, his 5 top 10s out of 8 races thus far in more than half of the season, you have been in it, and that includes shaking things up. That includes different types of track. Kevin Harvick is doing what he's got to do, and he's getting there. So as far as I'm concerned, he gets a win over these next couple of weeks, then, you start talking about him going top 3, but he is in it every week and a safe bet for a top 10 almost every single week of the year at this point.
I have to hold myself accountable here and make the same argument for Kyle Busch that I made for William Byron versus Larson during the first installation of the power rankings. I think you got to flip-flop these 2, 5 and 6, because much as I love Harvick, he doesn't have a win yet. And I understand that that's not everything, but it is a big thing for me. So I think maybe you've got this one backwards. We should have Busch at 5 and Harvick at 6. If you're asking for gripes, okay. That's just me holding myself to the standard that I set earlier in the season. Harvick is awesome. I find myself having the same questions about Harvick this year as I do like we did the episode before Richmond, where it's like, hey, do the Toyotas get a little juice because it's the Toyota Owners 400? is Kevin Harvick just what are they doing different with Kevin Harvick and his car that maybe they're just giving him a little glory run? It's his last year on the series. Like maybe he's just getting a little
But that's the thing is, if they had that, they'd give it to Briscoe. That's the problem, you know. If Tony had speed, they'd all have speed, right? But Eric Almirola is damn near a back marker at this rate, and Ryan Preece is like
my hero,
getting in a bunch of problems. So Briscoe's on the rise. It looks like Kevin Harvick's pacing the Fords, though. In the 4th spot, we see Kyle Larson dropping 3 positions. Can you believe it? Yes. Finn dropped Kyle Larson. Oh God! Oh God! Get out the pitchforks!
You ran face first into that brick wall of reality.
Well, he's got to win. He's got to win since our thing, and there's no denying that Kyle Larson is one of, if not the best talent in the field. And he did get that win. I think he kind of stole that win, and that's why he dropped a little bit. He was quick. Yes, he was probably the only car on like short speed that could match William Byron at Richmond. Obviously, it was the Toyotas that they created their own mistakes. Otherwise, I think that race is very largely theirs. Again, he stays in the top 4 because these last couple races are just kind of whatever. Yeah, the dirt track race, it is what it is. Road courses, he got absolutely mauled by Bubba. Was not even his fault on that finish. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody in their heart felt that Kyle should be higher. But at the end of the day, these next 3 drivers, their results, their consistency, and their speed is simply on par with Larson, if not better. So that's why I've got him at 4 for now. But again, he's got the win. That confidence is now through the roof. Playoffs is locked in for the 5. And as we start getting into the summer and we get to Charlotte, expect to see that 5 car up front, probably winning 1 or 2 more.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and that's the other thing to consider too, is that I agree with you on most counts regarding the Richmond race. I mean, I'm looking over some numbers on that one and 2. He did lead the second most amount of laps in that race, you know, so it's not like he kind of snuck in there and, you know, found one. He did find a way to get up front and stay there for a good point for a fair amount of that race. But yeah, I mean, he's easily, you know, he's going to bounce in and out of the top 3 on these power rankings all year. And I have a feeling he's going to be somebody that it's going to be very difficult to knock him out of there. So this may be the lowest we see him for a good while, given the momentum he's likely to carry through the rest of the year.
Right. And I will say this, the expectation after he went to Hendrick was given the 5 car, which was the 48 Charter, and won a championship with 10 plus wins in a season. The expectation for Larson is to be that. And I will say last year he was not that, and he was bumped out at the Roval. So this is a big prove-it season for Larson because, yes, generational talent. We've seen guys have got generational driving talent, right? But what's the difference between Joey Logano and Casey Kane, or being Jimmy Johnson, or being somebody who just didn't achieve expectations, right? So Larson's under, I would say, not a lot of pressure, but like we're at year 3 now of him having, quote-unquote, the best car, one of the best cars in the field while being the best driver. Not even making the Final 4 last year. Definitely, I think, stung a little bit, but that's when they get their crew chiefs back, because they're still suspended, the Hendrick guys. I'm interested to see.
What does that really mean, though?
For a guy like Kyle and his, Cliff Daniels has a lot of respect as being just one of the guys that can handle Kyle Larson as a driver. That's one thing that, like, I wouldn't say like crew chiefs matter. I mean, they matter. But they matter a lot more to more teams. I think Cliff Daniels matters more to the 5 than somewhat other crew chiefs matter to other drivers. It's a great balance. Kyle's so talented, but it's you've got to be able to manage him inside the car, to know when to keep him, to tone him down, to know when to keep him sane, and to not let him just go out there and fly around. Because you know what? Somebody was talking about it on Reddit. Kyle Larson kind of has a wrecking his fucking teammates problem and wrecking people problem.
Dude, that second shot at Bristol Dirt, Priest put him in the wall 100%. Go back and look at that footage. I swear he comes right back down the track and tries to
Right.
wreck Priest and wrecks himself.
Right. And then you got
For
Bubba,
sure.
the Bubba thing last year where he ran Bubba up into the wall. You got the situation where he ran Chase up into the wall on a restart on an oval, and a situation where he straight punted Chase at Watkins Glen. So it was either Watkins Glen or Indy. But he's kind of getting himself a little bit of a reputation for his on-track stuff. So I wonder if the patience is wearing thin there. But that's enough of Kyle Larson. Let's go to number 3. Tyler Reddick. He jumps up 13 spots to the 3. I can't even remember. I think the last time we did the power rankings, he was behind Travis Pastrana in terms of points. He was really struggling to start this race. The team shift, maybe just going from the getting into a Camry with the difference of driving, the difference of equipment, just everything as a whole. It looked like he was struggling to transition. Gone are those days. Outside of that spin at Richmond and being largely unimpressive there, Tyler Reddick has been lights out. Got the win at Coda, was competing for wins at Phoenix. I think he ended up pushing Byron to win that race. He looks extremely fast. He looked great at Bristol Dirt. Arguably was a turn or two away from taking it from Bell. Reddick is now lights out. I think one of the top championship contenders, and he was my guy to have a breakout year. So I'm really excited to see that both him and Busch are having success early in their new rides. But yeah, he's that, and it being just that the black monster car, like it's terrifying, dude. Black car, Tyler Reddick just willing to like sling it. Terrifying to see in your mirror.
Super, super sick driver. I'm a like a low key kind of Reddick fan, rooting for him in a lot of ways. He and Briscoe are even now because he straight punted my boy at the end of that Bristol Dirt race. They're even. But this guy, watching him drive on dirt and watching him drive on road courses is intensely fun. He's so good.
Right.
And I think you're right. Some of his, let's say, issues that he was having, maybe the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, it's got to be crazy switching manufacturers, and everything just kind of looks and feels a little bit different. You know, new team, new voices in your ears, new car. This guy is not going anywhere. Having him in the top 3, absolutely correct. Love to see it. But yeah, you're right. That car, that paint scheme is just iconic.
Yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah. Zero objections there. I mean, at this point, as far like him and Gibbs right now are two of the most, at this point right now, as far as on the Toyota team, though, Gibbs, Bell, like Reddick, the future is looking real bright with the way that those guys are running things right now. So my hope is that things continue, and I don't see the momentum for Reddick dying down anytime soon, and I hope that ends up being the case.
Yeah, super sick. I mean, he's so talented, and I'm glad they've got that season around. 23 XI struggling, Bubba struggling, but Tyler Reddick doing that, and then hearing Kurt Busch get choked up during the win, just shows how much that is riding on that team to have success, and the pressure isn't getting to Tyler Reddick. In the 2 spot, we've got William Byron. He stays exactly where he was. Oh no, why is he not at number 1? Well, we know who's at number 1, and we'll get to him. I am still very impressed with William Byron, but I am still having the same questions, which is, I mean, honestly, the real right answer to who is Blaney from last year is William Byron. If Blaney got 2 to 3 breaks last year instead of getting just effed, then that's what this season looks like. He's leading a ton of laps. He's qualifying great. He's doing good on the road courses. He looks solid at the intermediate tracks. He looks solid in the Phoenix package. Okay, but it just doesn't feel like he can close races. I know that doesn't make sense, but he got gifted 2 late race cautions that bailed him out of having bad adjustments, straight up bad adjustments and bad strategy calls. They're not putting together full races without the luck of late race cautions, which I guess you can say, well, they're banking on it. If you're banking on a late race caution, I think you're not. You're playing the game same way as like the way the 9 car stole that win at Richmond. If you're playing the game of, we need a late race caution to win this race after we've made adjustments and ended up in the bad spot, then you're not dominating the field the way that they should. He's so fast. It just seems like Tyler Reddick's faster right now. He's so fast, but it just seems like halfway through the race, he loses a spot or two on pit road, and then he can never recover that spot. Obviously, I think, things may have been different should he have been able to close out that Richmond race. Obviously, they had the short run speed. He got spun by Bell on the restart. So obviously, I think with the Richmond race, it could have gone better. But, it's tough with how good Bell is right now. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not gonna argue with the position second overall. Okay, because this is not egregious the way that it was the first time. 1 and 2 here is a coin flip. Totally
Right.
cool with him being number 2. Coin
Right.
flip. But I will take issue with he's just Ryan Blaney if Ryan Blaney didn't get blah blah blah. No. This is that's a bridge
He's
too
cool,
far,
dude.
bud.
He's quick and he's leading laps, and
No,
then
he's
something
not
happens
quick.
halfway through the race, and everybody catches up. They are
Bro.
bringing the best track. They're bringing the best car to the track every week, but not improving during the race. And I don't know if that's Byron. I don't know if that's crew chief, but
Okay,
they are
that's
bringing
fair.
the best short run speed to every
Yes.
single track, and then 50, 60 laps in a green flag run. Here comes the 5. Here comes the 20.
He has not been great in traffic.
Right.
I will grant you that.
right.
100%. I will grant you that. But
Right.
when he is in the front, he has the fastest car on the track every single week. When we were watching him go by in Richmond, we were in turn 1. Byron would go by. I would take a sip of my drink, send a text message, get a snack, and then Kyle Larson would come by in second place. Right? He was dominating.
Right.
And I understand what you're saying. I think it's more a team problem than a him problem. I don't know, but I don't mind the position. I'm not going to gripe on the number 2. You got to stop it with the Blaney comparison.
It's good. I mean, it's speaking to the season that Blaney had last year. We all say this because Blaney he was racing well. They just couldn't finish. And yes, this team has finished 2 races, but not without the extreme help of 2 late race cautions, taking wins away from Kyle Larson and taking a win away from Kevin Harvick, where he was not even, I don't even know if he was second when those flags came out.
I will say though, were I a crew chief right now, I would be also banking on late race cautions because we've had 8 races. 4 or 5 of them have had cautions in the last 10 laps.
Right.
So chances are you're going to get one.
Right.
So I don't hate that as a strategy. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Okay. But I'm not going to sit here and say that was ill-advised. I mean, statistically speaking, you got just as good a shot of getting one as not getting one.
Right. Like you look at guys like Reddick, who at COTA, we knew those late race cautions were occurring, but he's up front and he's leading without the caution, he's leading with the caution. You think about that strategy call. If that caution didn't happen, dude, the fact that William Byron is leading this race and Tyler Reddick managed to pit an extra time, completely catch them and was gapping them. And if they hadn't gotten the caution at all of when I think it was Kozlowski that spun, again, Byron has no shot at that race. Reddick is gone and they're on the same pit cycle. So Reddick's going to pace you to a 10, 15-second lead and then pit with the same tire strategy as you did in the race. It didn't even matter. So that's where if there's room for the 24 to improve, that's where. And that's why when I look at number 1, this is a driver who I don't see a way to improve. This is a full-blown breakout. This is, in my mind, regardless of the track, this is the guy who I think is good at the start of races. He is good at the end of races. He's got speed whether he's up front. He's got speed whether he's 10th or 15th in the pack. It seems like every time I see Christopher Bell, after every restart, he is +5, +10 positions. And that's Christopher Bell. The Bristol Dirt win is cherry and dandy and all. He didn't get this just because he won the Bristol Dirt race. We've already said that I'm not overreacting. It's definitely solid for him to get that playoff thing. But I think ever since maybe the Roval last year, the best car in the field is Chris Bell. And we're going to Martinsville, where he was very talented last year. He won that race. Fully expecting him to run up front again. And if they can nail this package, because they looked fast at Richmond, they looked solid at Phoenix, they can nail this package. Again, I think Christopher Bell should Should. It's NASCAR. You should, could, would, right? But you guys remember they had that issue on the tire change last year. But who was leading at Phoenix last year? For all intents and purposes, Bell can carry himself as if he was the reigning champion right now. A crazy breakout finish last year. He's carried all that momentum into this year. The only race that he's looked bad has been on those super speedways where shit happens and they get wrecked, or that race where Joey Logano checked up at Auto Club and it spun the entire field before they got to the start-finish line. That is the only time that I've ever gone, man, Christopher Bell's underperformed today. Every track he overperforms.
Every time. Yeah. I mean, 6 top 10s, a win. The guy is moving, and he's in every single race. I have zero arguments with the fact that it doesn't really matter what track position he's in. He finds his way to be in the race at just about any point. He will be in that conversation about whether or not he's going to be a top driver every single time that he steps out on the track thus far this year. So, and the momentum is also, surprisingly enough, it's growing. So with your last, points about like William Byron, I think this is where the difference in that discussion comes from. The question for William Byron right now is, is the momentum slowing up and is he moving down, or is it just on its next pace to start ramping up? For Christopher Bell, it does not feel like it's slowed down a bit since the start of the season. It has just been nonstop, and he's been moving all throughout this year. He has been somebody that you could consider a safe bet for, a win, a top 3, a top 5, however you like to place your wagers. Christopher Bell is someone you should be considering on a regular basis all the time, the way that this season has gone.
Right.
Chris Bell is a 100% bona fide championship contender. It is not up for debate. He is someone who, and everyone in the field knows he's super fast, but you don't ever hear, hey, he's got a wrecking his teammates problem. You don't ever hear, hey, he's driving me disrespectfully. You don't ever hear this guy's name coming out about anything negative either.
Right.
And I think that there's great value in that to Toyota, to DeWalt, to his team. This guy he's a young kid. He's not going anywhere. For 15 years, we're going to be watching Chris Bell do awesome things in NASCAR. And I couldn't be happier for him. Seems like a nice guy. Race is clean.
Right. Yeah, man, I mean, he did spin. He did spin Byron at Richmond, but even after getting out and saying that he thought it was because Ross was peeling down low, he immediately went back and was like, that's on me. My bad, Willie B. Didn't mean to do that. There's more room than I should have had. I'm sorry. So I like Chris Bell. I think the more drivers that we have like him, that's Briscoe, the Bells, the Reddicks. NASCAR's in a really good spot if they continue and make the rule changes to give the drivers more control of these cars. High horsepower, good Lord, we're going to have a really good product on our hand for sure.
For sure.
Agreed. All right. So power rankings are done. Regardless of how you feel about where things are, please let us know. Tweet at us, talk to us, submit, converse. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what maybe could or should be different in your opinion. Now we make our way to Martinsville. We come back to the Commonwealth a few, less than 50 miles from where we were just at over in Bristol. Yeah. Maybe I'm getting my geography wrong.
Well, they're close.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 50 miles close, but I know that they're real close.
They're real close for sure.
It is not far. So, we've stayed within this region between Richmond and Bristol and now Martinsville. And I always kind of like this part of the season because it's kind of fun to see this much, this close, because you always kind of feel like, I could probably hit this series at some point. It's like I could probably do the road trip and go. And trust me, that thought has definitely hit my mind because I would like to hit Martinsville at some point. I've always heard good things about the, it's more than just the hot dogs. I've always heard good things about getting down to Martinsville and the actual race experience itself. Something about that paperclip is just kind of fun to see him go and watch all the lead changes that always happen down there, especially over the recent years. So, I think we're at a point, especially now, we're seeing Martinsville, and I hope that this carries through this year because last year was a little questionable in some ways, despite some of the certain exciting moments that definitely happened with Chastain and Hale Melon and the way that the playoffs panned out and stuff like that last year. Martinsville is one of those tracks that you expect fun. You expect there to be a lot of lead changes. You expect a lot of passing. You expect a lot of pure chaos right around there in the middle of the pack. And that's one of the things that makes it enjoyable. So and these last 3.5 years or so, it's been the Toyota and Chevy show. So I'm interested to see what happens in year 2 of the Gen 7 car and what happens, if things like that change. So what do you guys think? How do you feel about going into Martinsville this week?
Well, I know, I'll tell you this, we're going to see that highlight of the Hell Melon from last year about 11 million times in the pregame show and the ads leading up to the race,
and for the next 10 years in general.
Oh yeah, for sure. They were already showing it. They were already showing it on the broadcast of Bristol Dirt. Yeah, I mean,
it's Martinsville.
That race at the end of last year was so boring until turns 3 and 4 of the last lap.
Yeah. Even the first one.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't love this track. These kind of like oddly shaped, non-banked type of things is not really like what I get down with, but hopefully with the new updated short track package this year, which seems to be working, hopefully we'll see some more exciting racing. Hopefully they can pass each other, because I feel like that was what the problem was last year. They just get in a line and then no one could go anywhere because the fastest line was the fastest line, and that was it.
And
I've got numbers to back up your point there, Corey. I'm sorry to stop you, Finn. I just wanted to get this out before I lose that. ADHD is a bitch. So the going into that, and I've just kind of got some numbers here. If you want to look at through 2022 with the start of Gen 7, we had 8 lead changes in the playoff race last year, 5 lead changes in the spring race. So yes, that tracks with what you were saying about this particular race last year. Go to the years prior. In the 2 years prior, as we were closing out the Gen 6 car in 2020 and 2021, we didn't have any less than 14 lead changes at Martinsville, regardless of which race you were at. So, I mean, that's what I mean is like, that's what you expect out of this track. You expect to see guys kind of cutting underneath and trying to find that inside line and get in there. You expect to see that 1, 2, 3 spot really like jock for position and see guys race each other hard.
Right. And it's a couple of things, right? It's the tire being so wide. There's a big contact patch with the tire. Tire wear really not being that big of a thing either on a track like Martinsville. I will say this, I feel like the Clash was a pretty solid race this year. And I think that's the closest we have seen in terms of what Martinsville is going to race like. I am curious. Martinsville is kind of notorious. Sometimes there's an outside lane that guys can find speed and kind of really kind of pin cars down. Sometimes they pin them down so much that they get themselves turned and put into the wall, Denny. So, but that was the end of the Gen 7 period. But now it just looks like the way that works, they run the bottom so well. And it used to be a track where, again, high horsepower. If you got to be able to roll the middle and get off exit extremely well. And there's a lot of different factors there. So hopefully this package does something for Martinsville. Otherwise, I don't care for second race at the racetrack. I know it's a great track on the schedule. It's got a lot of history, but like I'm just not looking forward to a track with 5 lead changes. We're not F1. We're ovals. Like if like come on. You mentioned the Hail Melon. There's always a lot of criticism on for example, big hits in the NFL being broadcasted yet them being penalties. Like you get to promote a game with all these big collisions, but the guys that did those things actually lost money when you find them. Now we're in a situation where Ross, the Hail Melon, and if you didn't watch it before, pretty much this guy needed to get a couple positions. So instead of getting low and braking and doing a turn, he just gunned it up to 5th gear, put it right on the outside wall, and just basically crashed the car and rolled all the way around. So definitely something to look up. Ross Chastain, Martinsville. That's all you need to Google. I promise you'll find the video.
There's an interesting. You brought up the point about the way that marketing material and illegal activity in the rules like tie in, and I think a lot of sports tend to be guilty of this. I mean, it's always funny to go back and look at like pregame videos before like NFL on NBC from like 20 plus years ago or so, and you watch and you're like, every single hit that they show here is a rules violation now,
Right.
and
Oh,
a
yeah.
15-yard penalty or a suspension. And there's other sports that are, guilty of showing that kind of thing. Hockey does it, quite often. We talk about the tough guys of the past. One of the things that in kind of a different light is, so for me as an MLS fan, one of the things I see on a pretty regular basis is as somebody who participates with supporters groups in general, like hooligan activity at a game, you will so often see the league they will market that attitude and tenacity from fans and like general like stuff that may be questionable behavior from folks and different things but then those same fans will also get booted and banned out of the stadium,
Right.
but used in the marketing materials from the league
Right.
on a regular basis. Somebody brings in smoke or brings in flares, and they'll be banned for a whole season, but that will be the commercial for the league or for the team
Right,
for
it's the big
the next
smoke
year
and
and a
the
half.
atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, again, and we've talked about it a lot off the podcast and on. I don't, I'm okay with the rule to ban the move. It is what it is. It's not the spirit of racing. It was cool that it happened. I think me and Corey were both on the same vein in that it's okay that it gets a rule, but me and Corey definitely disagreed on why it should be a rule. I think it should be a rule or I'm okay with it being a rule because I think it's not in the sport of racing, of the way that the track is supposed to be run, right? It would be akin to like cutting a road course way out of, which again, Ross Chastain's done that too.
I was going to say, I
just
believe we know of a
right.
driver that took a
Right.
service road to try and get
Right,
in.
taking a service road and giving yourself a big enough advantage to where the second, if we did second penalties mattered, but that's just not the case. So I'd like to see tracks raced, uniquely. If you can find a unique line, a la Ricky Stenhouse, Chase Briscoe, or Richmond, okay, not wrecking a car as we do it. Corey seemed to think that it was more of a safety issue that it should be done. Corey, do you still feel that way? Or is it just kind of whatever at this point?
I don't. I think NASCAR is very comfortable with the hypocrisy of doing of using something so unsafe, then creating a rule, then also using it in the marketing materials. So I'm not going to. I may have before spoken to the motives of NASCAR of making the rule. Your point is valid, right? It is not in the spirit of the rule book to do what he did.
Or
Fair
the
enough,
track,
sure.
right. They didn't make that track for that to occur.
Exactly. So I think my thing was more, it shouldn't be done because it's unsafe. I think it was disrespectful of Chastain to his fellow drivers because what he did could have harmed someone. Right. So like that was really kind of more my point. I think NASCAR had to step in and do something. Whatever they want to cover whatever they want to say their reasoning is fine. But yeah, I mean, if he had done that and someone had gotten seriously hurt, then NASCAR would have been
again. Well, we had a big conversation about is what he did inherently unsafe to other drivers or himself or the crowd? The crowd, not anymore. I don't think that that's an issue at all. Himself, I would say no because the speeds at which it happened compared to the speeds that these cars are designed to take contact at, again. Not really. I mean, the fastest he got, it was like 114 miles an hour, and then he rode the wall. These guys have lost their brakes at that speed and hit the wall even worse angles at tracks like that. And then, of course, if you tried like other drivers had tried that same thing at Darlington, which is a speedier track, and you're not really the way that those tracks are made, you're not losing that much. Like the impact isn't nearly the same. It's just the way that you catch it. So. It definitely looked very jarring. I think it looked jarring because of, again, how slow. You consider, wow, he was going so much faster. He was going 114 miles an hour. That's slow relative to NASCAR. It's just at Martinsville, very specifically, they get down to 37, 40 miles an hour in the turns. So 140, I mean, it literally looked like a video game. So, but I will say this. I don't think we see him in the predictions because outside of that move, he didn't really look impressive. Do we want to do our Richmond predictions here? Or Martinsville predictions?
Martinsville?
Yeah, Martinsville predictions. You said you were going last, which is your right. That's your
go last.
That is your right as the victory lane champion.
Okay, sure.
Go ahead and go last. Finn, why don't you go first?
Yeah,
this time,
sure.
I think Corey and I have gone first multiple times this year.
Well, it's not named after him, but for a while it was his track. We did get to see him at Richmond run pretty well. He's a vet at this track, or he's a vet. He's a champion. I think if there's a racetrack
He's
that he
about
can,
to take my pick.
if there's a track that he can figure things out at, he already won the one race that I said it was like the Clash, and there's Martin Truex Jr. I think that this is a track that's tailor built for the 19th strengths. I think they've got the speed there, so figure somebody else out because Martin Truex is who my favorite in Martinsville.
Do you want a minute to think, Jeff? Because I'll go now because I know there's no way you're taking who I'm taking.
No, it's fine. Like it would, like to me, it was gonna be Martin Truex. For a lot of the same reasons. I mean, he has definitely owned this track at so many different points in his career, and I don't think that it's. I think it's one of the safer predictions you could possibly throw out there if you just have any, grasp of the history of this track and how it tends to run. So
right.
if you're going to do that just to make this interesting, I'm going to go with the other, and that's going to be Kyle Busch.
Okay.
I like it. Is it my turn?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's
Now that's our show for the week.
So
How about wrap it up?
I like to look back at the results from last year, right? When I'm doing my selections.
Right. Sure.
And there were two guys last year who finished both races in the top 5. One of them was Melon Boy Ross Chastain. He is not my pick because he got there outside of the spirit of racing. The other one, number 1 in your hearts, number 12 in your programs, Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney is going to get off the schneid this week, and he's going to win this race. And none of these things I'm saying are going to be true because I want them to happen, and that's just how it goes. But yeah, my pick this week, Martinsville, number 12, Ryan Blaney.
We'll just put him in your fantasy lineup, and it'll happen.
I will do that. My first time picking Blaney, by the way. I'm the resident Blaney lover. This is my first time picking him as my favorite.
Watching Chase Briscoe spin Ryan Blaney might be the new intro to the podcast. Justin going, Blaney's sideways off the nose of the 14.
Yeah, I knew we wouldn't get through the whole episode without you mentioning Briscoe spinning Blaney, but here we are.
Love it. It's amazing. I've mentioned it like 3 times already.
Yep.
Yeah.
Take us out.
I'm on it. I think that's going to end it, and that's going to be the show for this week. Please make sure you check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Wreck. Please like, subscribe, share, and tell all your friends. You can find us on Twitter at intwreckpod. That's at INTWRECKPOD. Find us, follow us, chat racing with us, and happy racing, everybody. Enjoy.
You really hate that William Byron one, huh? William Byron's